Hey, good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. Welcome to today's Kandy Technical Fireside Chat. The topic for today is going to be managing your customer admin or your admin portal. We've got a lot of great content for you today, but we wanted to kind of get with you and show you some of the tips and tricks around going in and cleaning up, modifying some of the areas of the admin that you may not be familiar with. So as introductions, my name's Simon Legood. I'm the technical trainer here at Kandy. I also have Sarah Hughes on the line with us, who's the Senior Vice President of North America Sales. And so we're going to kind of go through this together today.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And so just to add to this, as we were going through over the past 12 months and going through, there were end of life notices and such, and there were things that needed to be kind of turned down. We helped many of you, our partners, go in and clean things up. And we realized then that many of you either didn't understand or maybe didn't grasp how the solution works to clean things up. And so there were also tools and things that you could use that maybe many of you didn't know as well. And there are some kind of gotchas or things to consider as we go through this. And so we want to just outline them, make this available. And as you guys all know, we make these after the fact on our partner portal so that you can go in and just listen to a segment if you need to. So without further ado, you can post your questions live in this, and then we also have Jennifer Miller, who's going to help us as well to present those questions as we go along. So let's go ahead and get started.
Awesome. So just to give you guys kind of an idea, here's the agenda for today's session. So we're going to start out by going through some best practices around the admin users and some of the security measures that are built in there. We're going to talk about managing your catalogs, your products, your pricing. So as you end of life a particular product, where you can go, how you remove that, how you modify that. Removing SMBs and organizations from your customer list. We've seen some situations where people will put Z's in the customer name to move them to the bottom of the list. We're just going to show you how to actually remove them from the system. We'll talk about managing and tracking inventory for each customer. There's some really cool reports that you can run at your partner level that we'll talk about. We'll talk about controlling the customer experience with the SIP telephones. So there's some cool tips and tricks there. And then we'll also talk about some of the more common network-related configurations that need to be taken into account when you're onboarding a new customer. So we do have quite a packed agenda this morning. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. All right, so the first section that we're going to come to is the admin user best practices and security measures. So a large portion of what we're going to talk about in this section is going to be password requirements and things like that. It's stuff that you really should keep in mind, especially once we kind of start showing you where these passwords and things can be used. It'll kind of open your eyes to why these are important that you use strong passwords. So the initial password requirements are set up when you first onboard either a partner or an organization. So your partner level, if you've just got SMBs underneath you, they will inherit your password requirements. So it's important that when you're going through that CIQ process, or you set appropriate password requirements. We'll kind of show you what that looks like. So this chart right here, we found it on the internet, but it's very impactful when you start thinking about security levels when it comes to passwords. What you're seeing here is the number of characters are going to be your rows. And then the columns are going to indicate whether it's a number only password, a letter password, all the way up to numbers, uppercase, lowercase, and symbols. And then what it's displaying is the amount of time that it takes a password cracker to actually crack a password based on the complexity levels. So when you start looking at things like a number-only password, right, you're talking even with 10 characters, a password generator can crack that almost instantly. But if you look at that same 10-character password, but you've included numbers, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, it would take that same password cracker 5 years to run through all the cycles and crack your password. So again, as you kind of look at this, you can see it's important that you start including requirements for numbers, uppercase letters, symbols, lowercase letters. And the more complex you make your passwords, the longer exponentially it's going to be for people to be able to crack into those passwords. We do recommend for most of your passwords that you use some sort of random password generator tool. There's a number of them out there on the internet that will generate a really strong password, especially for some of the things that you don't necessarily have to know what that password is because of, zero-touch provisioning or things of that nature. Password generator tools are a great resource. Then the other thing that you can do is there's websites out there that I've got a link here for one of them. It's I'veBeenPwned.com/passwords. What this website will do is it will actually, you can go in and type in, a password that you guys use, maybe company name 1234 or something like that. And you can see whether or not that password has ever been compromised out on the internet. So, it's not a bad idea to go out there, type in, whatever your generic password is, if you're using a generic password, and just see if it's been compromised. We have done some of our internal passwords that we use occasionally, and, they've showed up on that website. So, again, it's just another resource that you can use to make sure that everything is secure. When you take a look at the admin, and I'm not going to go into a bunch of details here, but when you look at the admin or your partner level, you can see all the SMBs, partners, organizations that are built below you. What this is just showing you is that there's 3 different options when it comes to the types of customers. So you've got SMBs, which is going to be the vast majority of our partners are going to have SMBs under them. Occasionally, you may see a situation where you have partners built under you. Or even organizations. Organizations are typically going to be much larger businesses. They've got their own custom SIP domain, things like that. The reason I'm showing you this is because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the security and where the credentials and things fall down. So in this graph, what you're seeing is the top level is Kandy. That's our servers, our information. When you go in and do your online CIQ process and you're going through and you're setting up your password requirements and things like that, essentially what happens is your credentials are pulled from the security above you. So for example, if we look at partner A, partner X would follow partner A's security requirements, but partner X would provide security requirements to SMB1, SMB2, and SMB3. Org 1, even though it's on the same level as partner X, is actually pulling from partner A's credentials. In a similar situation, and partner B is probably going to apply to more of you than the partner A situation. In partner B's situation, all SMBs 4, 5, and 6 are going to pull the password security requirements from partner B. And then again, same thing again with partner C. If you've got a partner underneath you or a reseller underneath you, but you still have some of your own customers, SMB 7 and 8 here would actually pull from partner Y, whereas these 2 SMBs would actually pull from partner C in terms of security requirements. Again, organizations are going to have their own security requirements that goes through the online CIQ process. So. All that to say, the online CIQ process that you guys have access to, as you're kind of going through the step-by-step wizard, there is a section called security details. And this is where you go in and you can actually make the selections for what those password requirements are. So you have things like minimum character length, minimum number of digits, minimum number of capital letters, property filtering, so that would be like street address, things like that, preventing those from being in the password. So there's a lot of different options there. And on the next slide, what we've kind of done is we've broken out what our recommendations are for those individual settings. So this is a great reference for you guys to look at. I'm not going to read through every single one of these, but there is a table that we've generated for you that will give you guys kind of an idea of what some good security measures would be. If your security standards are not up to this right now, it's worth considering opening up a ticket with the KBS support team and having them, increase some of these security measures. And then the next time you go to change any of these passwords, it would fall under the new security requirements. So whether that's the end user password or your device passwords or whatever the case may be, you can go through, and when you reset those passwords, it would fall into the new standards. The next slide, I just wanted to share with you kind of the 4 different passwords that we're talking about here in terms of security requirements. And not all of these are going to be applicable to everyone, but the SIP password is located here in the subscriber. So this is just a view of the subscriber. The SIP password is the one that's under identity. Your voicemail password, again, is this voicemail PIN under settings. And then under advanced, if you're using hot desking or hoteling, you have a separate password for that. And then you also have the device password, which is broken out into site, users, and none. And I'll explain those again in just a second. Right, so if we start looking at the SIP password, we put together a list of everywhere that the SIP password actually gets used. So first and foremost, it is used for the end user web portal. So when you onboard a new subscriber, they do have the access to go into the end user web portal, and that is the subscriber password that gets used for that portal. If you set it up that way, it will then also require them to reset that password. So that's an important thing to think through. The SIP password is also used for things like soft clients, so Smart Office Connect, both the desktop and the mobile versions. It's used to get into the call recording platform. And then if you're deploying a third-party soft phone, like Voice Operator Panel or any of the others, you do have the ability of using the SIP password for those as well. The next section that we're going to look at is the voicemail password. So keep in mind, right, that the voicemail password or the voicemail PIN is not only used for accessing voicemail, but if you're using the fax services or the auto attendant, the voicemail PIN is what you would use to access all of those tools as well. So again, keeping in mind what it's capable of doing for security purposes. Hot desking password, it is used for hot desk or for any hot desking or hoteling enabled phones. This is probably something that you're going to want to make it, I don't want to call it easy for a person to log into the phone, but keep in mind this is a password that they do have to type in and memorize. So, you want to increase the security standards, but still make it reasonable that somebody would be able to type this in on a daily basis. And then the last password that we were going to look at is the device password. So I mentioned earlier, there are 3 different options when it comes to device password. The first one and the one that we recommend the most is that you use a site level password. The site level password is set for all of the devices across the entire site. That's done in when you go to modify a site inside the admin. There's a section for device password. You can type it in there, and then you would select site as the default subscriber choice. Again, that's recommended because you can use, a really complex password generator to create this password. It's not something that anybody would have to type in unless you're working with phones that don't go through zero touch provisioning. But it would be the most secure option so that people, can't get into your phones and do malicious things. The user specific password is good in a lab environment or something like that where you've only got a small group of phones. But when you scale that out to an entire company, it becomes really unwieldy in terms of how to manage changing this password or keeping this password on a rolling 90-day kind of situation. So, using a device password is not always the best option. And then the third option is setting the password to none in the subscriber. That doesn't mean that there's no device password. What that means is it's going to use the SIP password or the identity password for that particular subscriber. This is actually probably one of the worst options that you can do, because if the subscriber ever goes in and changes their password in the end user portal, their phone is going to stop working, right? They will then have to reset their phone in order for the phone to come back online and start working again. So setting the device password to the SIP password is not a good idea. It's good when you're working in a very small test environment or something like that, but outside of that, it's not the best option. Again, the recommendation that we would have is that you use the site password and you use a really encrypted password generator to create that device password. And then the last thing that we wanted to talk about in this section is going in and reviewing who has access to your admin portals. So as you progress, right, we all have situations where users will switch roles within the company or leave the company, things of that nature. It's a good idea that you come in and clean that up and remove those users. If you had to let somebody go for whatever reason, you don't want them having access to be able to modify all your customer information. So coming into the admin portal, removing people's access that no longer work for your company is a practice that really should be done on a regular basis, whether you set that every 30 days, 60 days, discuss that internally, but it's a good idea to come in and review who has access to what, not only at the partner level, but also at the SMB level, right? Sometimes you'll create a user profile for a specific customer. So it's something that you want to go in and manage and make sure that you're cleaning up users that don't need access to the system anymore. The other option here that I wanted to share with you guys is this toggle status. What we're looking at here is the training environment, and you can see I've got a bunch of training users that I have. So if I'm ever teaching a class and need to give access to an environment, I can turn on these individual users, but innately I don't need those user accounts active all the time. They only need to be active during when I'm teaching the class, things like that. So I mark them as inactive so that they can't be logged in. You could also use this if somebody's out on medical leave or an extended vacation, something like that. You could make their accounts inactive so that no malicious activity happens while they're away from the office. And the next section is going to be managing your catalogs. Sarah, you?
Yep. So this was a very important one, because going back to the original, and if you want to go to the next slide there, The catalogs, the products, and the pricing are things that get updated as you add products, but also as you reduce your portfolio as well. And so again, over the past 12 months, we had to reduce some items, and we asked that the resellers are going in and updating these. So just setting a few things in the baseline here is that products, once they're created, they're grouped together in a catalog. And a catalog is what you give your customers to be able to order things, or maybe you do it on their behalf. But it cannot be ordered at the enterprise level or the SMB level or org level unless it's in that catalog. So that's the kind of the baseline there. You can take multiple products, you can bundle them together as a product, and that again, it gets added to a catalog. You have to have at least one product and at least one catalog in order to move forward in the process. But all of you've been set up in the past, and so that's already done. And of course, that also helps you brand things. You can call them whatever you want. We may call it something, but you may call it something different. But on the far right-hand side, once a product is activated, if it's in setup, it can be modified, okay? But once a product is active and it's in catalogs and you've got customers using it, then you cannot delete them. You can only discontinue them. And when you discontinue a product, it prevents it from being ordered anymore. But if you've got inventory already, you can use that inventory. And so once it's either decremented the inventory or all the active orders have been provisioned and used up, then it will move to inactive. So you're going to kind of see that as we move forward. So go ahead and let's skip to the next. So what we're going to cover in this section is modifying your products, updating pricing as you need to, if you need to add or remove or modify discount structures, and then, of course, modifying the catalogs. Because all of you, if you're deploying the services today, you at least have one product, one catalog, and so on. So let's keep going. So the way you do this is you go up at the top in admin, you see product and kind of hover over that, and then you can see things that are your products. So let's go to the next. And on the left-hand side, so you'll see the SKU, the name, the type, if it's monthly or if it's a one-time charge. You'll see the state, and we'll cover what those states are. And you also see if it's in use. And the in use means it's in a catalog and it's being used by some customer downstream. So the way you get into this is you click on that link on the left, and then on this, if it is still in setup mode, or maybe it's not assigned yet, you can modify it. But those that have been used downstream, you can just visually see what's in it. That's it. And if you want to modify it, if it's in setup mode, then you can uncheck things and check others. But you see the yellow highlight on some of these, that means they're mutually exclusive. So only those things, once you select one item, only those other things that can be bundled along with it would be shown. So you can edit these, again, if it's in setup mode or it's not been activated or used downstream. Keep going. So within this, on the left-hand side, again, you can click it, and then you'll see kind of the main page of the product. Down below, you'll see what's in the product. But on the right-hand side at the top, there's something called Manage Pricing. When you click that, then you're able to go in. But let me tell you, this is, go back just one, please. The one option in this, or one thing to note, is that if you go in and modify this, and you have other customers that have this in their catalog, and they're using the same price point, because there's 4 price points: standard, group 1, group 2, and group 3. And if you have other customers that are using group 3 and you modify this pricing, you're affecting them as well. So you really have to understand how you've set that up, and not just be kind of a newbie doing this. So click Manage Pricing. We'll go to the next one. And then you see at the bottom, you can hit the plus sign and you can add another currency if you need to. So those of you who might be using this in Latin America, in Canada, maybe even in Europe, euros and British pound or other things, you can do that. So you can hit the plus and add additional items. And that will also help you see it. If the catalog itself is in a different currency and you know this product is created, but you're not seeing it, it's not in that currency. But for those that are pretty much all US dollars, you probably already have it. And you see standard, group 1, group 2, and group 3. And many times, and we've got a whole session on this kind of stuff that I go through when we onboard new partners. And if we need to do refreshers, we can do that too. But you may set these standard group 1, group 2, or group 3 based upon how you sell the product. Maybe group 3 is a wholesaler that you use, and standard is if you are on an annual contract or month to month, and group 1 might be if you're on a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year contract, whatever it is. So depending upon how you want to manage your business. But these things will need to get changed in your portfolio from time to time. As you grow your business, as your costs increase, then you will need to go manage your pricing to your downstream customers. And here's where you do that. Okay, go to the next. Of course, you want to save. And you can also see here at the state. So there are 4 different states. Again, setup is the initial creation. And then when you go in and activate the product and then add it to catalogs and use it with your customers, it will show active, all right? Those that are discontinued, where you go in and discontinue it, and we'll go through that in a minute, means they cannot order any more, but they may still have inventory and can use that. So again, if you want to really get it out of their ability to use it, you need to decrement that inventory, and we'll show that in a minute. But the inactive is where once all inventory is exhausted, it's marked as inactive. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So if you select a particular SKU or product, again, you want to be very cautious of doing this, like double check before you hit the discontinue, because you cannot bring it back. It's in the grave. It is not coming back. So click that discontinue if you're absolutely double dog sure that you never want to use this again. Okay, we've had people who hit the discontinue and, oh, I didn't mean to do that. So look at the bill of materials below, make sure you understand where it's used and in what catalogs before you click discontinue. All right, so let's go to the next one. So then the next thing is to go in and look at your catalogs. And your catalogs may be, maybe you create a catalog for each and every customer, which can get unwieldy as well. Or maybe you create catalogs based upon how you're selling the product. Again, maybe a 1-year contract versus a 3-year contract, or in a certain region catalog, or maybe it's your wholesaler's catalog. But you go in and you assign products to catalogs so that they can be ordered. Okay, so go to the next. And here, this is where you can change the name of the catalog if you want. At any point, you can change the currency. If you change the currency, then what shows underneath it, again, are only those products that have a plus sign and an add for that currency. And then the price level on the right-hand side, midway up at the top there, is standard, group 1, group 2, or group 3. And it's a good idea to keep track of, and I just keep a table, a spreadsheet that says each of our partners and what price level that they are using, so that I know, okay, this particular catalog, if I make changes to the products that are in this catalog, anybody who uses group 2 pricing is going to be affected when I make that price change. Now, discount structures can also be updated and added to this so that as they go in, after they get to a certain spend, cumulative spend of everything, then they'll get a discount. And so you can put that in your contracts, or maybe that's something that you don't want to use at all. And again, the default for currency is if you have a US dollar, for example, customer, as you go in and build a customer and you say they're going to be US dollars or whatever, then this will be the default catalog that shows up for that currency. And so if this is what you want to start out with, maybe your 1-year contract, don't start out with your cheapest prices, start out with your more expensive prices, because some people may inadvertently not select it correctly. All right, go to the next page. So a couple of things that you're able to see as you're managing your SKUs, discontinuing SKUs, that kind of stuff, is to really understand who's using these SKUs. And we've recently updated a report. It's the cost, revenue versus cost report. And this gives you, and again, when you see it, it's in the dashboard at the partner level. And then you go to the bottom half of this and you can download this report. And what you'll see is customer name. Now that is not, you know, the the way you spell it out in admin, but it's actually the domain. Okay, so you got to know this one is Cloud Optic domain or whatever it is. And then the SKU description, you see ordered. That tells you by customer domain how many they have ordered of this. For example, Voice Essentials. And you can see, you know, the cost, how much is spent, and all that kind of stuff. But the main thing is ordered and available. That will tell you out of all the 20 that you've got, or in this case, 230 are assigned to this one, or 166 to another. That will tell you which ones to go in and remove it off the customers and then decrement that inventory. Do it then. Okay, go to the next slide, and I think we cover this, is when you decrement inventory, first of all, active products in your portfolio, you should see that list of active products, and that should be what you're selling. So discontinue things, decrement the inventory, take it out of the catalogs, and so on. Otherwise, they're going to continue to use products. They're going to be continued to be billed for products that can't be used anymore as well. So you need to make sure that you don't have any bill disputes or anything like that. So when they reach their end of life on your end, again, don't forget, you can put products in there that have nothing to do with us. We don't sell telephones, we don't sell headsets, we don't sell, you know, bandwidth. You can go in and put those in the portal and manage those on your own too. Keep going. So now looking at the inventory, you can hit fulfillment inventory, and this will, and I think it's on the next slide as well, see what's in supply, what's reserved, what's in use, what's available in there. And so for each one. Now we're down at the customer level. So this is Simon's Candy Shop. So you can see what is there, okay? But you want to take note of this supply, all right? Because that's what you're going to use to decrement. But if they're in use, you can't decrement them. So it's really important, like this auto attendant, or actually no, let's look at the bottom one, this admin SKU for authorization code, right? There's one in supply, but there's one in use as well. So it's been incremented. And in use. But if this is the voice standard package as well, there's 3 in supply, there's 1 in use and 2 available. So I couldn't decrement the entire supply of 3 until I was to go and remove it off the 1 subscriber. Okay, so let's go to the next. All right, so what you do is you go to the dashboard, you go to order, you hit add order, even though you're decrementing, you hit add order and you select the decrement. Let's go to the next. And then it's a good idea up at the top of this decrement, or you can put a note so that you can say what this is for. And you check on the left-hand side, it opens up a quantity field on the right, and I like to take a screenshot or a screen capture of that inventory so I see that, because I get distracted really easily. And so I have to go back and see that. So make sure you enter the supply number for each, as long as it doesn't have anything in the in-use category. And then you hit submit. Okay, in the next slide, please. So then you'll see in the order report, you'll see the type that it was a decrement. And so on. Now, you'll also see this at the partner level for all of your customers that have decrements. All right, let's keep going. And I'll hand it back over to Simon.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. So now that we've kind of talked about cleaning up the products and your catalogs and things like that, the other thing that we wanted to kind of share with you is the overall process for removing an SMB. So if you've had a customer, that's moved on or something of that nature, it is important to go in and actually clean up, your old SMBs or the organizations that need to be removed from the system. But what we're going to kind of talk through is the process on how that happens. But keep in mind, basically the way you remove an SMB or an organization is by going in the reverse of the setup process. That's probably the easiest way to remember it. And we'll go through each of these sections individually, but essentially you're going to remove all of the subscribers, remove all of the devices. You're going to go through, you're going to clean up and remove any of the call answer groups, the services, the PSTN DIDs, the admin users. And then once you've done all of that, you can go through and decrement all of the inventory that's remaining on that customer before going in and actually removing them. The reason you do want to go through and do all of this is so that it doesn't get hung up in the deletion process. If you remove everything first and then go through and remove the SMB, it should flow through, and I'll show you what that process looks like. So the first section is removing all the subscribers. That's easy enough. You can go into fulfillment and then subscribers. You can check the box over on the left-hand side of the subscriber list. That'll select all of the subscribers for this SMB. And then you can choose remove users. Once you choose remove users, it is going to ask you if you're sure you want to do that. So you will go ahead and say yes. Depending on how many subscribers are in the SMB, it's going to take it a couple of seconds to go through and actually complete the process. Once that's done, what it'll come back and it'll show that there's no subscribers. Once you've removed all the subscribers, you can then go through into device management and actually remove all of the handsets off of the SMB. Now, guys, this is a really important process to remove the handsets, because if they're handsets that either the customer is going to be reusing with another provider or you're going to be reusing, as maybe used equipment that you sell or something like that, if you don't remove the devices off this SMB, when you actually delete the customer, the devices are still in use on that customer. So for zero-touch provisioning purposes, the zero-touch provisioning would not go through. You wouldn't be able to add them to a new customer because they're still on a deleted customer. They're still registered for that particular customer. So it is important to remove decremented or remove the devices that are no longer needed there. What you can see is once you go into the fulfillment device management, you can check the box next to the handsets that you want to remove, and then you have the ability to go in and click remove devices over on the right-hand side. Again, we do have a note here reminding you if you don't decrement or delete the devices, that it will get held up in ZTP if you try and reuse those.
And it will make you delete, like if you have mixed phone types, you will have to delete each type if you're doing that. You can do it in a group, but you have to delete, like if you've got Yay, Lincoln Poly and Cisco and Audio Codes or whatever mixed bag of tricks in there, then you do have to delete each of the vendors individually.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call out on that. All right, so once you've gone ahead and hit remove devices, again, it's going to prompt you asking if you're certain you want to do that. You go ahead and say yes. Once you've removed all the different phones from the device management, it'll come up and show that there are no more devices there. Once you see that message, you're ready to then move on. So in our process, we said step 3 is removing all of the phone numbers, the call routing, all of the services. You would want to go in and very similarly in the PSTN list or in the call answer group list and slowly go through and actually remove all of those services from the system. So, if you go into the PSTN DIDs, you can actually check the box just the same way. If you run into a situation like a system number or a voicemail number that you can't remove, you can open up a case with the KBS support team and they can remove those phone numbers for you. But you want to get rid of all the phone numbers, you want to get rid of all the call answer groups, and then any services like music on hold or media that you've added, you want to go in and remove those services as well. Once you've gone through and removed all the various services, it's also important to go into accounts and then users and remove all of the user profiles that are in the system. Obviously, you can leave the admin user that's there by default, but all other users, you would want to go through and actually remove them. Once you've completed that, you should be able to go into your inventory list. And like Sarah said in the previous section, I like to create or just do a screenshot of this page so that I can see what's in supply versus available, make sure that everything is available. Once I've got that screenshot, I then go in and place that decrement order that we just talked about a few slides ago. And at this point, I would be removing everything from inventory. The only thing that should be remaining that you can't actually remove is the default single auto attendant that comes with every SMB, but that won't cause any issues. Beyond that, you would want to go and remove everything else, all of the voice plans you have, hunt group, wall boards, everything. You want to get rid of all of the inventory.
And let me just interject here too. This is the prime time to do it in that same process. While you're at the SMB, the org, whatever, doing this, add this to your instructions, whatever it is, in removing a customer, because after everything has been taken out, you don't know who has the supply. And so while you're in the customer, taking the step now, I call it taking out the trash. So, load the dishwasher after you eat, whatever it is, but just cleaning up after yourself so that this inventory is decremented. Then you can go to the rest of the stuff. This is what so many of our partners hadn't deleted the DIDs, hadn't deleted the services and call answering groups, but more importantly, in admin users, they hadn't decremented the inventory. So you cannot delete the customer until this is done. So they're just hanging around. And then when you go in and look at trying to find a particular customer, you're seeing all these customers that have no subscribers in there because they didn't know how to delete all of and clean up after themselves. So please, please, please clean up and decrement your inventory when you're getting rid of everything else in the SMB or org.
Perfect. Once you've gone through and you've completed all those steps, you do go back out to the partner level. So your partner level, you can go to your customer report. You would then select whichever SMB it is that you're going through to remove. And over on the right-hand side, you should see the remove customer button. If you don't see this customer,
yep, exactly. Go ahead.
Yep. If you don't see the remove customer button, you haven't completed the removal of everything, right? Inventory, users, subscribers. There's something still built out on the SMB, and that's why you don't see the remove button. So it is very important that when you're going through and you're actually inside the SMB making the changes or removing the services, that you go through each screen. There's probably something out there that's still provisioned, and that's why it's not allowing you to remove. Once you've removed everything, you can check the box and you should see remove customer at the partner level. Once you click that remove customer, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, some of you have hundreds of these sitting out there. And if you need assistance cleaning that up, we can do it for a pro services quote and remove those for you. But some of you have hundreds of these sitting out. and because you didn't know how to delete them, you just put some characters ZZZ or do not use or something like that in the name of the customer to put it down at the bottom of the list. But if you really do want assistance, then we can put together a pro services quote and we can then take those out for you. So you don't have to, but we do recommend strongly that you use this process and clean these up.
And then again, once you've clicked that remove customer button, it is going to prompt you, ask if you're certain you want to do that. Keep in mind, guys, once you actually go through this process, there's no turning back. Once you've removed them, you'd have to build them again. So just be mindful of that. Once you select yes, what you'll notice is that the customer will then stay in your customer list. It'll go into an awaiting deletion status. Essentially what that's doing is it'll stay in that awaiting deletion status until the next bill cycle is complete. Once the next bill cycle for that customer is completed, they will fall out of your customer list. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule. So if the SMB was created within the past 30 days, we'll actually just delete immediately. We kind of assume that those are, you're still in the onboarding phase or the trials account, a test account, something like that. So if it's been created within the past 30 days, it'll actually just delete immediately. You don't have to worry about that. And otherwise, it'll stay in awaiting deletion status until the next bill cycle is complete.
Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit and just kind of recap. And so many of you, we've seen that you come back to these webinars and you jump to a certain section. So we're going to talk about managing and tracking inventory for each customer. So let's go ahead through this. So there's multiple ways to do this. If you're within a customer, you can go to fulfillment inventory and you can view it. And like Simon said, and I said as well, you can take a screen capture of it, whatever it is, and then, all print screen, put it in Paint, and then you've got it there. But if you really want to download and go through and see within the customer, you can go to either report and go to the subscriber details, or you could go to fulfillment subscribers, just download them from there. And you're going to see in column F what SKU and that they have, okay? At the partner level, you can go to look at fulfillment inventory and again, just view, but that's at the partner level. So you don't know who has what in each. So from there, at the partner level, you can go over to the reporting under assurance reports, and you can download the subscriber details. That's going to be for all your subscribers that are currently provisioned, okay? And then you could also, at the partner level, go to the dashboard and look at the revenue versus cost. So let's click through these just a minute and you can see them again, just kind of a recap. So versus the partner level versus the customer level here. And again, you go into fulfillment inventory, and the big difference is the partner level, you see all your downstream orgs, all your downstream resellers, all your downstream SMBs. At the customer level, it's just what they have. And again, you see supply, in use, and available. Sometimes you may see reserved because it's been ordered there at the at that customer level as well. So click on to the next. We'll hit this. We've got 10 minutes here. So again, you can go into the subscriber details and you can add a schedule, do a scheduled report in here, but you're not really going to schedule it, and you just hit download. Or you can go in at the customer level and go to fulfillment subscribers and just download from there. Either one, whatever's the easiest for you. Depending upon also your access level, you may see one and not the other. All right, keep going. And then you can see here the subdomain, you can see the user ID and the SKU. And of course, if you need to pull those out, you can summarize them, but you can then go in for each user and know what to click on and what to remove. Now, whenever you open up a subscriber, within that subscriber, you can uncheck one box and check another as long as there's inventory of the other, okay, if you need to move them around. And we did a lot of that going from like package 6 and 7 to package 5, let's say. And we just saved the user, nothing changed. We didn't have to out them and rebuild them. But if it is specific for a product that you're not using anymore, you're not using that user, then you can delete the user. Okay, let's go to the next. This again shows that revenue versus cost in the dashboard. It's not a scheduled report, and you see it by customer name, which is the domain. You see the SKU, the description, ordered and available, and that will tell you at the partner level, you know, who's using, like what customers are consuming these this inventory. Let's go to the next. And I believe that hands over to you.
Yep. So this next section, it's important information, and we just kind of wanted to remind you guys, you know, that there are certainly some things that you can do to control your customers' experiences with these phones. So just to kind of get into it, we covered a lot of this stuff a couple of months ago in our customizing SIP devices webinar. But just to remind you, there are ways that you can go in and customize things remotely for your customers. Modifying device keys is one of those ways. So you do have the ability remotely to go in and modify the device keys. So if you're using a Polycom phone or a Yealink phone, this is the interface that you're going to come up with. You can come in here, you can do you know, BLF with speed dials, you can set up, you know, call part directed or any of those kinds of things remotely from the subscriber list itself. If you click on the show image, it'll show you a picture of whichever phone it is that they have set up. And then you can assign those keys based on what it is that you're wanting to do. In addition to that, from the admin portal, you can go in and manage device keys as well for Cisco phones. It's a slightly different interface that exists for Cisco devices. But again, you can come in here, you can customize those device keys, you can add BLF, whatever it is that you're wanting to do on the phones. Keep in mind again, you know, and we did cover a lot of this in the customizing SIP devices webinar a few months ago, but when you're talking about device parameters, you can set them for an individual SMB, or you can set them at the partner level, and all of the SMBs underneath the partner would actually receive those device parameters. So if there's something that you want to do, and I'll show you in a second, you know, you can add like your company logo to the phone or things like that. You may set that at the partner level rather than the specific SMB level, so that all of your SMBs receive that same logo through zero touch provisioning. So just a couple of examples here of things that you might want to set at the partner level. Changing phone features to network features. So a lot of these phones have built-in do not disturb functionality or call forwarding functionality. What we're talking about is using device parameters to actually change that from a phone feature to use the star codes for do not disturb and call forwarding. Again, that can be very beneficial, especially in situations where you have multiple clients or multiple phones that are all on the same subscriber. Using that network feature rather than the individual phones feature would allow for that whole subscriber to go into do not disturb, or call forwarding applied to that whole subscriber, not just that one phone. And again, if you were to remove that device, you know, unplug it, something like that, if you're using the phone features, those would not continue to work with the phone being unplugged. Another option is implementing global or personal address books, adding logos. Again, this is a great way to brand your equipment. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a doctor's office or something like that and asked them who their phone provider is, and I'll hear something like, you know, Poly or Yealink or Audio Codes, because they're reading the branding on the phone rather than knowing who their actual service provider is. So one thing you can do is you can actually go through here and you can put custom logos on the phones themselves. The top one's an example of a Polycom device sitting on my desk. Directly below that is a Yealink device, so you can create a custom image that is pulled down to these phones. We go into a lot of detail on how to do this, how to configure this in our customizing SIP devices webinar. I think it was August when we went through that. If you want to know how to configure this and actually see what those device parameters look like and all of those details, take a look at the customizing SIP devices webinar, and it will give you all of those details.
And this is a great way for your customers. If somebody says, you know, hey, what phone system do you have? They immediately look at the telephone and they say, Yealink, Polycom, right? Well, they don't have a phone system. And without you having to pay for branded handsets, this is a free way to get your message out there or your logo out there so they know it is yours. Great. Okay, let's go to the next one with a few minutes we have. And the last piece of this is talking about ensuring that your customer networks are really configured and engineered for the very best experience. So let's go ahead and finish up here. And the reason why I really impress upon you this is because the service is only as good as the network it's riding on. And if there's, you know, network issues out there, customer prem network issues, if you didn't provide that network, then you have to convey to them, here's what I need happening. You got to work with their IT, because perception is their reality. They think the product is terrible, whatever it is, because it's the network. And many of you, we had a session last year where we had a couple of our partners come in that are distributors talking about deploying this over the top and how that best practices that they use to test the issues that come up to see if it's actually the customer's network or the product. And so what they do is they test as well. They try to replicate it in their network, okay? Or test it in your network to see if there's a real issue with the product or if it's a network issue at the customer site. I can't tell you time and time again where our support people have, you know, it's taken so long to resolve a case, and the underlying issue that caused everything was the customer's network. And so using some of our tools and documentation, we have an interconnect guide on the partner portal that you can go in and look at, and that gives you a lot of information about how to set that up, how to set up your firewalls and so on. So let's go ahead and click to the next here. And there are instructions about ports that you need to have open for things like our Smart Office Connect clients to work. We no longer have WebRTC clients, and so you don't necessarily have to open those ports. But inside that interconnect guide and on page 43, it does list out the ports for traffic. A big thing, and I can't tell you how many times we say this during onboarding, but a customer updates their network and they add a new device, they add a new firewall, they update whatever, and they by default, it has SIP application level gateway capability. Well, that will block certain things from coming in. So we need you to disable that. And as they're adding new network elements in there, if you're not aware of it, be made aware of it when they do, and make sure that that is disabled. We had something the other day that and we said, we think that it is, and it went on for at least a week. We knew that this kind of looks like SIP ALG is enabled, and they told us no, it wasn't, and come to find out it really was. So just communicating that downstream to your downstream partners, but your downstream customers as well. And then lastly, we did have a webinar about this before too, where we talked about voice quality, and you need to make sure that IP telephony and video traffic are prioritized with the other traffic types so that they are real time, because voice is real time. And that's also in the interconnect guide. So can we go to the last slide here? So next month we do have an update from our friends at Poly, and so they're going to update us on what's happening there in their portfolio. And then you can also go back to any of our previous webinars. This one will be posted there too. And for anybody that you share this with, if you found this valuable, please share this with other people in your company. You can go to our website, and here's the link to register for the partner portal. Use your work email, please. That way we'll automatically get you assigned into that and make it easy for you. All right. Well, there were no questions. I hope this was valuable to you, and I appreciate your time today. And we'll get this over to you as quickly as possible. And go ahead and register on our website for the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.